Good.
Awesome. Welcome back to another recording of Pencil Leadership. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. Excited to chat with our guest today. He's a speaker, an author, and a consultant. And he actually just released his new book here not too long ago called The Power to Speak Naked. So excited to dig into that a little bit and just figure out how his pencil leadership description is through the questions asked. But Tyler, welcome to the show today.
Oh, it's my joy to be here, Chris. I'm just taking a moment so that everybody on my social can now see what we're doing here on your social. So
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for making it live, because I love being able to do the live stuff. It's way more fun when we can do live, and especially when I can share it out to my group.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're actually going live on Facebook now too. So we're just up the ante a little bit. So
nice.
So everyone on Facebook now tuning in. We got Tyler Foley on. He's the author of The Power to Speak Naked, and he's also a speaker and consultant. So I guess what is it's about speaking, obviously, or is it actually about being a public speaker, or is there more to The Power to Speak Naked?
Yeah. So it's not about being a public speaker in the traditional sense of, Tony Robbins up on stage, roaring to a crowd of 6,000. We, first of all, are public speakers, all of us. If we weren't, society would collapse. Like, there is no way that we could exist on a day-to-day basis if we did not speak in public. You couldn't order food at a restaurant. You couldn't, commerce would collapse, because how on earth would you ever purchase something at a store?
Right.
So we are all public speakers. What the book is designed to do is to teach everyday folk, you and me, particularly small business entrepreneurs who are trying, who need a bigger platform, who need to find their voice and explain to them why their message matters. So it's not a book designed to get you up on a big platform in front of a stadium full of people, but rather to encourage you to have tough conversations with clients, employees, potential business partners, joint ventures, your spouse, your family, like those things where we're having a hard time discussing them. The book is designed to give you tips and techniques and some inside knowledge onto how to put together a really effective presentation.
And that's fantastic, because you're right. Like, we're all public speakers. Like, we all have our stage. It doesn't have to be, in front of millions. But like you kind of mentioned, in front of our family, in front of our, work associates and stuff like this. If you have a podcast, we all have somewhere that our voice needs to be heard and should be. So to be able to find that and kind of build out those tips and tricks and structure and confidence. So, yeah, I'm excited to get that one and dive into it. I think it's going to be a great read. But with that, I guess, what led you into wanting to write a book about that?
Because I was told to. I all the books that I've written have come from a business need. Okay. The first book that I wrote, Total Buy-In, was a self-published book strictly to give to clients that were part of my safety consulting firm, in a way that could answer the questions that were most commonly asked, so that I wasn't repeating myself. Because I find that, a frequently asked questions thing, even on a website, is critically important, because it alleviates 90% of your time. If it's the same question over and over and over and over again, and you're given the same answer over and over and over again, that is not an efficient use of your time or my time. You can get your questions answered, and then that allows us to do a deeper dive and really solve your issues and your problems. So with my first book, that's how that came about. The second book was very similar, in that I was starting to put together a series of training presentations, and the same questions kept cropping up over and over and over again. How do I get over stage fright? What happens if I lose the audience? How do I keep them engaged? What do I do to prepare? How do I effectively prepare for a presentation? And what does that look like? And all of it was just, it's the same questions. And I'm giving the same canned generic answers. And to be honest, my answers aren't any different than any of the 10,000 other speaker coaches that are out there. But the difference was how I said them.
Mm.
The analogies that I drew, why you need to do them. And that's why everybody should be willing to share their story, because just because your story is similar to someone else's, you tell it in a unique way.
Right.
And the circumstances around it and the details that are important to you are different, and those will resonate with the people that are close to you. So what I did was I put it all together with the book, and that again allowed people to pre-qualify. They're either going to resonate with my message or they're not going to resonate with their message. One of the greatest things happened to me, actually, Chris. Yesterday. I've been thrilled about it for 24 hours. I've been jazzed. I got my first hate mail.
Oh man!
Somebody actually
big time
took the time to not only critique a press release that went out by my publisher, which was new for me because I've never sent out press releases. So the press release went out by my publisher. When it came back, this gentleman had looked up my mailing list, had got on the mail list, and then not only wrote a blog about how asinine my material was, but then emailed in to point out that I was a hack to my mail list. But in order to do that, he had to sign up on the mail list. I was blown away. And I feel so validated right now, because I've long believed that you need to be polarized, right? Like, you need to say the things that you're afraid to say are the things that your audience needs to hear. And if you're saying them, you're going to draw the people who need to hear it, and you're going to repel the people who don't want to hear your message. And I haven't had this side of the equation until yesterday.
Wow, there you go.
Happy.
It's crazy how like people spend so much energy to do that, though. Like, he could have done so much more positive things, but
he had to research. I feel again so validated, because not only did he write a blog post about it, he took the time to research 2 separate PR releases that went out, and then had signed up on our mail list, and then attacked the mail, like responded back. And I was, I can't even begin to describe to you how overjoyed I was. The first thing I did was I forwarded it to my funnel guy. Then I forwarded it to my publicist. Then I forwarded it to my publisher. And I said, look, we're
doing
it.
the right thing. Yeah. Yep. And even that, like that it just brings us, you still get the benefit almost, because now people are like, oh, this person's talking bad about let me go check it out myself. And it brings you more traffic. Like, so at the end of the day,
P.T. Barnum was completely and totally right.
Yes.
The only bad press is no press.
Yep, absolutely. That's funny. But that's what I think people a lot of times run from, is that they don't want to have that negative, feedback. But it's like, you got to pick a side. But
and the funny thing is so when we were talking about public speaking, one of the things that this guy attacked was the statistic that my publisher likes to point out, which is the 77% of North Americans express anxiety around public speaking. And it's this, and then they say it's the fear of public speaking. And this guy knows what I know. And that is that we're not afraid of public speaking, which you and I have already discussed previous in this interview.
Yeah.
And so he was just incensed that I would use that statistic. And I'm like, it's a common statistic. And the problem is people don't know what their fear is. And so it's a misdiagnosis. And I always equate it to having heartburn and thinking that you're having a heart attack.
Right.
And you're running around looking for defibrillators, and what you need is Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
And so I'm on record of saying that for years, by the way. And this guy was just angry that we were using that statistic, because it's a known fact that nobody is actually afraid. And I'm like, no, I agree. But it gets, you're right, it's PR. It gets people's attention. And he was particularly upset at the fact that I was pointing out that this book is banned by Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, but the title said controversial book banned by Amazon. And what you need to know is that it is banned for advertising. I'm not allowed to advertise because the cover violates their nudity clauses. In a ridiculous way, by the way. And I have fought Jeff Bezos and his bots for the last 9 months trying to get permission to be able to advertise the book, but it's been banned. Like my ad account has been shut down, and it's been shut down on Facebook.
Wow.
Because of the cover. Like they were like, no, you cannot do this. And so we used it, right? It's PR. So I think the press release went to, controversial book banned by Amazon. He's like, you can get the book on Amazon. And then he had the link. And I'm like, dude, you're proving my point, and I appreciate you. I am sorry that I have upset you, but I am so happy that I.
That's funny. That's just part of the journey. Yeah. And I think we learned that along the way. Like, you're going to have people that just, you don't resonate with, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And we can still live together. It was a video I saw, someone got a hate comment on one of their videos, and they're like, this, like, it wasn't even hate. It was like, hey, I don't like agree with that, or, I think the opposite thing, but hey, you have a great beard. And he's like, this is how we should do it. Like, it's not that we're tearing people down. It's like, you have your opinion, you disagree with mine, but we don't have to be ugly towards one another. Like,
there can be civil discourse.
Yes.
Like, I don't have to agree with everything that you say.
Right.
I personally wouldn't have Cap's shield up behind me. But, that's fine. I'm more of a Cape Crusader guy.
Okay, there you go.
And yet I will admit that Marvel is probably better than the DC universe.
I'd agree.
Still doesn't change the fact that Batman is my favorite comic character of all time.
But we're not going to throw down fisticuffs over,
we don't need to do that. We can get back to a really poorly written, helpful book, The Power to Speak Naked.
Oh, that's awesome. And it just, I think, and people can learn so much from that. Like, looking at that, what you just kind of talked about, like, okay, hey, people are going to throw shade. They're going to be upset with some of the things that I say if I can stick to my guns. And, because we're into the inclusive and inclusive equity type culture. And it's like, yes, we want to treat everybody how we want to be treated, the golden rule kind of thing. But there's some things that we just can't, we're not going to agree on everything. And so taking the higher road and be like, hey, agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that.
And the other thing is you can have 2 point of views and both people still be right. I think that's one of the things that society has forgotten and lost. And we talked about, my very, very varied career. One of the things that I do is safety consulting. And unfortunately, one of the drawbacks of that job is I occasionally have to do incident investigations. And if I've been brought on to do an incident investigation, it wasn't a minor thing.
Yeah.
Things went wrong in a bad way. And somebody's life has been drastically altered for the worse. And part of doing those investigations is doing interviews. And I have never conducted an investigation where I've had multiple witnesses to an event where the 2 witnesses' statements lined up 100%.
Yep.
We all see the world differently through this lens. I can't see it through yours, Chris, and you can't see it through mine.
Exactly.
And it's interesting when you hear the details that stand out to people, because it's heavily influenced by their biases and how those biases came to be from, how they've grown up, where they do, what they do. And the simple fact of the matter is all those people that I interviewed saw the thing. Whatever happened, if it was a fatality or some kind of, life-altering medical incident, everybody saw it, but they literally saw it from different points of view.
Yep.
And they all took something away from it. Does this mean that person A and person is lying because person B doesn't agree with what they're saying? No, they're both telling the truth.
Yep.
But I think another thing that society has forgotten is that there is a difference between truth and fact.
Yeah.
And facts are very hard to come by. And truth is skewered by our own lenses.
Yep.
And it's this need to have you believe my belief that has really soured the pool.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I talk about in the book is don't be afraid to be polarizing. And say the thing that you're afraid to say. It's probably what your audience needs to hear.
Yeah.
You are going to get the people who are like, you are so full of BS.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because if you are true to your core, like, I know who I am, I know my messaging, I know who my target audience is, and I am grounded with it. I'm perfectly acceptable with that. And I'm at peace with it. So that when somebody attacks my point of view, I can say, yes, I not only do I understand where you're coming from, but I, in fact, actually agree with you.
Yeah,
It's still not going to change my messaging.
exactly. Yep. Just being aware of other people's positioning and everything with it, I think is a big part. And being empathetic, I think, helps. Understanding people come from all different situations, and to not take it too personally. I think that's a big one.
Well, and that's, if anybody's read the 4 agreements, that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the 4 agreements. Don't
Yeah.
take anything personally. And
Yep.
it took me a long time to find that mantra. The other one is, not from the 4 agreements, but a great
Mm-hmm.
thing to remember: never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Yeah.
How do you do that in an actual physical world? You can't. So the only way to do it is through the power of story. And in order for a story to be effective, you need to listen to what the other person has to say.
Right.
And do it with an open mind that their point of view is valid. You don't have to agree with it, but you shouldn't dismiss the validity of it. They feel that way for a reason, and
Right.
your job is to understand why. Walk a mile in their shoes, and you might have an understanding why they have come to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
You still don't have to agree with them, but you don't have to attack them for their belief.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a super important thing that we're trying to figure out, especially with all the demographics and just different viewpoints and worldviews out there now, which is amazing. There's so much diversity and so much difference out there. We can learn from one another. And I think with that kind of, so for those who've been listening to the show or tuning in, we're kind of tweaking the format a little bit, and we want to get into the actual pencil leadership traits with our guests because of that, because everyone's worldview is different, everyone's experiences are different, and their journeys are different. And so, being with the 5 traits of pencil leadership, how we can't do this alone. So the first trait of pencil leadership, for those who don't know, is that pencil has to be held to leave a mark. And so we as people have to be humble. We have to have mentors and guides to help us along our path. So I'm curious, Tyler, have you had a specific mentor, more than one mentor, just somebody who you've really looked up to that's kind of led you along your journey?
I've had dozens in my life, and I've been so blessed to have them. In fact, some of my first and earliest mentors are some of the mentors that all of us share in common. My elementary school teachers, and they were so impactful in my life, in fact, that I made a specific note to acknowledge them in the beginning of the book. In the acknowledgments, I list all 6 of my primary or elementary school teachers, because they shaped and molded who I was. My father passed away when I was 6 years old, and I had an entire community step up and support my mom and myself and my sister, and some of those people are still in my life today. A great man and great role model, father figure to me, mentor. Bob Corbett is still in my life, and in all my important occasions, he's who I reach to say, I want you to share in this moment with me. And I look at drama teachers that I've had and directors that I've worked with that have really helped shape and mold me. And then, hired coaches too, like some of the people that I've actually sought out and said, look, I need to work with you. I think of people like Jason Krause at Krautman Industries, and who has a great book, by the way, 52 People. If anybody wants to read a thing on connection, I shout out to Jay and his book. A mentor of mine, Aaron Sky Kelly, who also has released a book called Get the Hell Out of Debt. The list is long. And then the seminars that I've gone to, right? Dr. John DeMartini, Darren Hardy, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, Phil Town.
Yeah.
I needed help learning to really gain some financial literacy, and I wanted to learn how to invest in the stock market properly. And Phil Town has been one of the greatest gifts that has ever come into my life. So I am constantly surrounded by leadership, and it's funny that you talk about being humble and seeking that mentorship, needing to be held. I think to be a successful leader at any given point in our life, we need to be 3 things simultaneously. We need to be a student, a peer, and a teacher.
Right.
And you have to be those things at the same time. You need to be learning so that you can grow. You need to be at a within a peer group that is supporting that growth with you, and you need to be passing on the knowledge that you have to somebody who is not at your peer level yet, but you want to see them raised to your level.
For sure.
And that I think the real key to that is, as you have noted, being humble.
Yeah. Letting our ego get out of the way. Yeah. Because we don't know what we don't know, and we could think we know it all, and we get in the situations. It's like, oh crap, what am I supposed to do? And so, I think just there's so many good ones, and with our ability to be connected even to some of these big, like you mentioned, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, all at Philtown, through online means, through their content that they put out, you can still be mentored that way and learn from them, even from afar like that.
Well, and especially right now, like Tony is coaching on the internet.
Yeah.
Like his events have gone virtual.
Yep.
And it's possible for him to pick you out of the crowd in your living room now. And I know people who have been on some of the UPWs, the virtual UPWs right now. A good friend of mine was actually just on Business Mastery, and he actually was like, so Lauren, tell me a little bit about what's going on. She was like, right. So like this, especially right now, there is no excuse, and you're right. You don't know what you don't know. And being able to have a little humility with it. And that leads right into the next trait that you have, which is growing from hard times.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't, if I'm stuck and set in my ways, there is no growth. And hard times don't need to be hard. I was just discussing this on another show where, somebody asked I think the first question was, what was the greatest moment of my life and what did I learn from it? And then what was the worst moment of my life? And I went, well, they're basically the same thing. And the greatest moment of my life was probably my darkest moment, because from that, first of all, there are so many metaphors from it, right? Like when you hit rock bottom, the only place to go is up. The light at the end of the tunnel, like all of those things, as trite as they may seem, have grounding in reality. And the truth is that if you're too stubborn to reach for help, they might as well fill in the hole that you're in and make it your grave. Right. But as long as you're willing to start climbing or to ask for help and ask somebody to throw down a rope, that's when you can learn the most. That's when we get the most growth.
For sure. And those sharpenings that you're talking about with pencil leadership, it's gonna hurt. It's not gonna feel good, but it allows us to become more sharp. It allows us to grow if we let it. And so what was that turning point in your hardest moment? Like, what kind of made you realize, hey, this is actually going to turn out for the better?
Well, I've had so many that have smacked me down viciously, and some of them were circumstance beyond my control. And some of them were definitely things that I was doing, and some were combinations of the above. I know when I was 17, I had a medical incident that paralyzed the left side of my body for a year. And that was outside of my control.
Right.
But prior to that, I was a real douche canoe. Like I've been acting on stage since I was 6 years old, and so at 17, I'm 11 years. I'm an industry vet now, and my ego was massive. And when I had that incident, it humbled me right now, because for a time I thought I was never going to act again. But first of all, it gave me something to strive towards. Bob Corbett was in my life at that point and was instrumental in not only treating my physical ailments, but my mental ailments as well, and really letting me see. He was the one who introduced me to Dr. John DeMartini in the first place. And so being able to conquer some of those mental demons and look at this as for the blessing, because it was a complete reset. First of all, I had gotten completely complacent with my career, and was at a point where I was barely doing the bare minimum. And even then, I don't even know I was doing the bare minimum. I would maybe look at my sides or my script the day that I showed up to on set, and I would kind of be memorizing through the rehearsal going, I've got this.
Yeah.
that is not a sustained attitude for this industry. That's a fast way to get blacklisted. And I was bored. But as soon as I was given the hunger again, I mean, that was a great blessing. But it was also it was humiliating and humbling because, as somebody who has taken pride on his appearance and I was vain at 17. When all of a sudden you look like this,
yeah.
And you're talking out of your mouth like this. And I had to sleep with an eye patch because I couldn't close my left eye. So it was open. Constantly and my face drooped. And so I had to have an eye patch to sleep. Like I looked like I looked like a pirate with a stroke. And it was hard at 17.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people don't get through that, and that's the day, or they just stay in those painful moments without, saying, okay, like, how can I move? And even if you weren't to overcome that, still like saying, okay, how can I live? Like, what's the positive? What can I do? Like having that mindset. And sometimes it's hard to do. But again,
hindsight is 2020 for a reason.
Yes.
And it's really hard to be blind to those things when you're in the moment. And I think one of the greatest gifts that I've gotten from getting to work around Tony Robbins is, he says it way more eloquently than anyone else that I've ever heard, right? Life happens to you, or life happens for you, not to you.
Yeah.
And when you take that moment, and one of the things that he always talks about is finding the grace. I think it's one of his affirmations that he wrote down, and I remember hearing him talk about it. And it's now become a thing for me to ask myself, where is the grace in this moment? Because life is happening for you. And I even think like the book launch. Anybody who's ever gone through a book launch and has had a book published, they know that it never goes the way that you planned.
Right.
Ever. And mine on September 7th felt like a train wreck. Absolutely everything I had planned, including a mail out that I had designed for somebody who had gone in on a joint venture with me and was agreeing to promote my book to their list. The copy didn't go through. They didn't like the graphics, and they just didn't send out the email. And this was the biggest one that I had. So I had a smaller list that were agreeing to mail out to like 500 and 1,000 people, 2,000, 3,000 people. And it was great. But this was the list. It was a nationwide list, 100,000 people.
Wow.
And I was like, I need this. Didn't go out. And I was like, why? And then when I was reviewing it, when they were like, okay, we're ready to go when we do it, not only was it talking about pre-sales on the day of the launch, so it shouldn't have been. It should have just been sales.
Yeah.
The link that I had was for the US audience, not the Canadian audience. So if it had gone out the way that it would have been a waste of 100,000 people seeing that email.
Yeah.
But I had time to fix it, change the wording, and make it work. So in the moment, I was like, why is nothing working?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
But I needed time and distance and space to
be able to see it.
To be able to see it. And again, then I look up and I go, thank you for having my back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like if we can kind of take a step back in the situations, those moments of pain, of struggle, and be like, okay, what can I learn? How can I improve from this? Like, and if we can do that, then those negative situations don't really have a lot of power over us. Like we can shift and pivot and be able to grow from it no matter what, despite difficulty. And that goes
to that. Yeah, I was going. So sorry, you were going to lead into know yourself. I know you were, because I was going to go there too, because that's what you need to do. So you discuss it, and I will agree with you and make you look good to your audience.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go. So it's the same thing. Like when we make mistakes too, we have to kind of like, it all kind of correlates. We have to humble ourselves. Like, yeah, I screwed up. Okay, this really sucks. What can I do? So what mistake, has there been like a resounding moment in your life that you're like, oh, I messed up and had to kind of eat that humble pie. And how'd you go about fixing that mistake?
Well, I've made numerous ones, and professionally and personally, and I found that the common theme to all of them was being straight up front right now and saying I screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had a friend of mine had hired me professionally to be a safety consultant, and there was a common practice on this main project of duplicating signature pages, because the information that was being signed off on was being signed off by the same people over and over and over again. And it's not a good practice, right? And from an ethics standpoint, it goes against a lot of things that I've signed off on saying that we won't do. But from a business efficiency standpoint, it made sense, because yes, these people have actually reviewed this thing. We're just not going to make them sign 50 documents. We'll grab the signature page. We will agree that we did it. We'll have the attendance, but the actual document sign off, we're just going to duplicate it. And because of that practice, one of these practices and procedures that needed to be signed off on by everybody had gotten implemented by me and my team, but was not reviewed with everybody. It was only reviewed with a small portion of people. We did have them sign off on that, but then because of this common practice that had been implemented, when it got into the admin side of it, instead of using the original sign-off sheet, we used this old sign-off sheet. And sure enough, a month down the road, an incident happened that required a review, and they pulled all the documents, and the one signature on it was A, somebody who didn't work there anymore, and B, one of the other trades that was responsible was actually, the prime contractor, their safety guy. And he's like, I've never seen this document, and you have my signature on it. And I was like, man. The irony is we were doing that practice because it was a thing that he had told us to do, but it didn't excuse the fact that it was wrong. I could have sat there and been like,
yeah,
but it ultimately was on me. And that is just one of many incidents in my life where I have done something either stupid or wrong. And then here's the thing too, we never do it with malice.
Right.
It's such a small percentage of the world that is actually evil, that is doing these things to be criminal or mean or whatever. A lot of times we're either not thinking, or we're in a compromised situation, not in our correct mental state, whatever it happens to be. We're making these decisions, and they're poor decisions. If instead of saying, making the excuses for it, if you can be like, listen, I screwed up, it goes so much easier, because all the rest of it that comes after that is so much easier. Right now, my wife and I are binge watching Suits.
Okay.
And for anybody who follows that, it's a couple of lawyers, and the one lawyer is not a lawyer. He's got a photographic memory and was helping people cheat to get into the bar because he could write the exam for them. And he knew more about the law than anybody else because he just remembers all these things and can cite case file, but he's not an actual lawyer. But then he lies to get into a job. And then, seriously, this first 6 seasons are them constantly trying to maintain that lie, when if they just come out and said, this is how it is, everything would have worked out better, but it would have made for good drama. And so, right. But so you have to ask yourself, what do you want your life to be? Do you want to be smooth and easy, or do you want it to have drama? Because you can invite the drama just as much as you can invite the, just calm static. You pick. But if you don't want the drama, then you need to eliminate it at its source. And that's usually from conflict. And conflict is coming when your heart and your mind are not aligned. And that's the first thing to do, is you got to start getting honest in here. Then you can get honest out there. And if you can get honest out there.
And that goes, directly into the fourth trait of pencil leadership, is the lead on the inside of the pencil is what leaves the mark. So it doesn't matter what you look on the outside. You could look like a brand new pencil, or, be beat up. but that lead leaves a mark. So with us, it's the same thing. Our heart, that integrity, those values have to be there, and whatever those values in whatever they are, that's what's going to come out in our true self. So whether that be, unethical stuff, or, if it is trying to be your best and have empathy. So what are a couple of values that you really, really cherish in yourself and then look for in others?
I think one of the things that I look for the most in others is the thing that I think we're always mirroring, right? So for me, it's loyalty. Mm-hmm. I would like to think I'm one of the most fiercely loyal people on the planet. I will ping out people on my phone, right? And something will remind me of somebody. I'll hear a song or I'll see a thing. And I always say, just thinking of you. It's just a quick little thing. And I do that because it's important to me to maintain relationships. And it's particularly important to me to let people know when they're on my mind because of a thing that I actually heard at a DeMartini event. So I attended Breakthrough, 20 years ago. And in the session that I was in, when he does a breakthrough experience, there's anywhere from 80 to a couple hundred people that go through that. And we were doing this deconstruction. And one of the principles that DeMartini believes in and I believe in is that, there is a yin and yang to the world, that physics is a real thing, that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you can't have this without this, which is one of the reasons why, when I look at my medical incident, it's a dark time, but it's also one of the lightest times. Like, it was one of the biggest blessings in my life because I couldn't have had everything else that I had without it. We need those yin and yang opposite energies. And so he was saying, even if you feel alone and unsupported, somebody out there is thinking of you and is offering you support. You just may not have that physical connection to know it. And this one guy just could not get over the metaphysical logic leap that needed to happen for that. And he's like, you can't possibly know that. You can't possibly know that somebody was thinking of you at that time. Because it gets really touchy-feely at that point. People are like, no, but I just felt it in my heart. And I just knew that in my spirit, somebody was with me. And this guy was like, no,
shut it down.
No. But it got me to thinking. I'm like, he's not wrong. You can't know that. But she's not wrong in that she felt it in her heart and in her spirit. And John is not wrong in saying that there is opposites in all events, that we have a yin and yang to the world. So how do I prove that? How do I make everybody in this situation right? And to me, it is when I think of you, Chris, and something triggers a memory of me, I have to tell you right now that I'm thinking of you, because I don't know where your mindset is. And here's the crazy thing about it, Chris. I have been doing this now for over a decade of playing this experiment. I can go through my phone right now, no word of a lie. I have a friend who just lost an ex-lover who I reached out to, and I was like, you're on my mind. I wanted to know that I was thinking of you. And she said, you have no idea how much that means to me. I texted another friend who said the same thing a couple of weeks ago. I got another text, a good friend of mine who I thought was in a good headspace. And I'd actually an advertisement for a show that me and her were together. And I texted her and I said, hey, our thing is on. And she was like, oh, that was just what I needed right now. I had the worst day on set. My buddy Chris, I will send him every time I see 11:11. I text him 11:11 without fail. He is the first person. If I see it, I text him. And I got a message from him the other day that said, you have no idea how much this means to me that you do this. And today in particular, I needed it right now. And it's that kind of thing that makes me know that everybody in that scenario was right. You can't know until you get the proof. And I will forever give my friends the proof that they are on my mind, that they are important to me. So one of the biggest values that I have is loyalty and friendship I also look for empathetic and sympathetic people because I want to be empathetic and sympathetic to the point where I know what my prejudices are and I hate them. I actively try to work on, because no one is without prejudice.
Right.
Maybe Mother Teresa. But even then, I bet you she didn't like prunes or something. Like
right.
there was something.
There's something that got her. Yeah.
But you have to be self-aware, and know yourself. And right now, the big buzzword in public speaking, and as a speaker trainer, this is the thing that drives me insane the most, is authenticity. God, I hate that word. Authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness. You have to know who you are at your core so that you can be unwavering.
Yeah.
I am not going to compromise my internal moral compass. My morals may not be the same as yours. My belief structure may not be the same as yours, but I know what my belief structure is, and I am unwavering in it. And because of that, I am going to magnetically draw people who are of a similar mindset, and I'm going to repel those who are not.
Yeah.
And both of those are okay, and in fact are important if I'm going to succeed in life and business.
Absolutely. And that's the start the show. We talked about your negative feedback you got. It's the same thing. You're going to separate yourself, and you're going to put yourself on one path, and people aren't going to like and let you know. But yeah, I think those are the really good values. And I was just at an alumni event from my alma mater yesterday. Yeah. And we were talking about networking and building those relationships and just staying connected with people. And it's a thing that sometimes we lose as entrepreneurs, is especially starting out bootstrapping. It's like, everyone just wants to make a sale and make more money and stuff. But we forget, like, you might be able to make some short term, but unless you're building those relationships and increasing that network and giving and not thinking or having an agenda.
Giving is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could give one tip to your audience right now to effective networking, is something that I heard from Les Brown, who I can't remember who said it first because they were friends.
Gotcha.
Bernie Dorman or Les Brown, because they were in the same room at the same time when I heard it. One of them said it and one of them went, yes, that's the key. More about the less of me.
Yep. I think Les said that.
Yeah. And I want to give Les credit, but he may have stole it from Bernie.
He might have. That's true. Maybe
Bernie could have stole it from him.
Maybe they shared it.
They're definitely, but more of the less of me. And that is the key to all business. You should be giving of yourself. I think it was Zig Ziglar that said it, and I may be misquoting again too, because foggy mind.
Right.
But he said, you can have everything that you want in the world as long as you show other people how to have what they want.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm definitely paraphrasing that one, and I think it was Zig.
It was either Zig or Jim Collins. I can't remember, but it's one of those two. So
right. Hey, like I said,
it's so
Bernie,
true.
And a lot of these adages are not unique. Like they're principles that go back years and years and years and years. It's just
nothing new under the sun.
Somebody has coined it in a catchy way. But if you want to do really effective networking, and it's something that I know for sure, this I did learn from the late great Bernie Dorman, because he was an advocate of it with CEO Space, is when you go to a networking event, instead of saying, hey, my name is Tyler Foley and I've got this book, you need to buy this book, you need to buy this book. You need to go, hi, my name's Tyler. What do you do, Chris? And how can I be of service right now? What's your biggest need?
Yep.
Because that pre-qualifies you to me. Like public speaking, and I'm sure my hater will rip on this. So 77% of people identify having a fear of public speaking.
Right.
We have acknowledged that it's not a fear of public speaking, that it's actually a fear of public judgment. Still, knowing that it can increase your wages and increase your chance of promotion, only 6% of people will actually seek professional help to get better at public speaking. So if I go to a networking event with 50 people in it, it means only 3 people are ideal clients for me. And that's only if they're at the mindset at that point that they're willing to commit to doing that.
Yep.
So me constantly going around giving my business card, that means that there are 46 people in that room, because I count as one of the 50, 46 people who that is a waste of breath, time, energy, and space. But what I could be doing is what you had mentioned in growing my network. How can I be of service to you? What do you need? Because you may need something that I have within my network.
Yeah. Because it changes, it changes the mindset from scarcity. Hey, I want to just sell, to abundance. Hey, there are clients out there. Here, I'm just going to give, and the right ones are going to come. I mean, yes, you still have to, go through the process, but it's more about the giving. And even in the sales process, it's about, them. What do they need? What are they about? What are they looking for? Can I help them? And then if they're even open to it, but it all starts with building a relationship and having that mindset.
And on top of that, what can you do to provide so much intrinsic value that they can't help but say yes?
Yep.
If somebody isn't willing to actively work on their professional career in the art of public speaking, I can't sweeten that deal no matter how much I tell them that hey, buy the book for $17.95, and if you go through our funnel process, we're going to give you $700 worth of value.
Right.
That's great, but if none of that is value to you, it's just wasted time.
Yep.
So you need to be able to create worth for yourself without actually selling your product. And the best way to do that is to be a connector. Because if people know that if I need to solve a problem, Chris knows everyone. You already have value. And so you are providing a service.
Mm-hmm.
Whether there is monetization immediately from that is irrelevant.
Right.
Because eventually it will monetize.
Yep.
The number of people who refer me because I've got a deck of favor cards. If people, if every time I did a favor, I got a card, I'd have an Uno deck. I'd have an entire shoe that would make Caesar's Palace jealous.
Uh-huh.
But and they're not things. It's not a quid pro quo,
mm-hmm.
right? I'm not looking tit for tat.
Right.
I want to have a shoe like that because that's how I measure my value to society. Have I contributed? Because if I only had a deck like this, or worse, I was in negative equity, I am a drain on society. I want to be contributing.
Yep.
And then it's nice too, because if you know that you have this favor deck, then when you actually do have to ask a favor,
you have a lot of people to ask.
When you have to go to a dude who's been burned by business relationships and say, hey, can I tap into your 100,000 list? And he goes, yeah. And I go, what do you want for it? Well, you know what he asked? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm willing to do it for you. But I've also put in like 3-4 years of sweat equity into that relationship, constantly volunteering at events, providing value, going above and beyond.
Yep.
And I will be honest, 4 years of volunteer work, approximately 3 to 5 days a month, I feel I came out ahead on that deal.
Yeah.
Like I would do that again and then some. I still feel that for the favor that I received in return for that, I owe an awful lot. So I've got to give back in some way. And that I think is the best position to be in, where you feel now I need to contribute again. And it becomes this cycle. Like you said, there's abundance.
Yeah.
And that's proof of the abundance. You should feel, okay, now it's my turn to give back into this system.
Absolutely. And it's true. And that's what I think people don't realize. Like, they're like, well, how can I give back? Like, I don't have anything special, and that goes to the last trait of
know yourself.
Pencil leadership. Yeah. You've got to know yourself, because we're all created uniquely with individual talents and skills to leave a positive mark the way we can, and no one else can exactly like us. And so being able to know yourself, be aware of yourself, understand that, and lean into that strength that you have, that you're created to do, you can be able to give so much to the world. And if you don't, the world, it's a disservice almost, because you're not bringing, your light and your strengths to the world to help. And so I'm curious with you, what would you say kind of your differentiating factor is, your uniqueness, and then what positive mark are you hoping to leave?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. So first of all, my differentiation is everything that made me. It's the same thing that makes everybody. Like, why should somebody come to me over anybody else? Well, if this resonates with you,
Yep.
35-year performer. I've been acting on film and television since I was 6 years old. I am the son of a single mother and a widowed mother. It's not that, my father up and left or they were divorced or something like that. My father was taken away from my mother early on in their relationship and very early in my life. And she had to bootstrap the world together.
Yeah.
And on top of that, my father was he was an educator and entrepreneurial. So whether it's, nature or nurture, somehow in me, I'm going to combine those traits. I'm entrepreneurial. I am educational. I want to train. My mom was incredibly resourceful. That's a thing that is within me. When she finally did start dating, her first serious relationship for the first decade after my father's passing was with a musician. So now I have this creativity and musicality within my life. And, that unto itself has shaped who I am. So there's always a thing that you can sit at. And that's the thing. Like, I don't have one, I'm that jack of all trades, master of none. People can do an IMDb search on me. I am not Will Smith. I have made a career out of playing named or numbered characters as opposed to name. I'm frat boy number 1 or student number 2, right? I don't get names. And when I do get names, they are they're a courtesy, not because I'm critical to the point. Right. So, and then I look at, my musical career. I've been blessed to play with some incredible musicians, but I've always been a jumping off drummer. I am never Ringo Starr. I'm Pete, right? Like, nobody remembers that the Beatles had a drummer prior to Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
I wasn't that good. And I am that guy, right? And so, but I know that about me. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop drumming.
Right.
I love to do it. And I goaltend. I've been a goalie basically all my life. I grew up in Canada. Of course, I'm going to play ice hockey.
Yeah.
And I loved the position of goal. But I'm also 5'8".
Okay.
On my resume, probably 5'7" in reality, 145 pounds on my resume, like 130 in reality. I do not take up a lot of space in the net. So I am not the world's greatest goaltender, but I don't care because I'm not competing against other people. I'm not competing against other drummers. I'm not competing against other goalies. I'm not competing against other authors. When this came out, this was published through Morgan James, but I self-published it 2 years ago. I was blessed that my self-published manuscript made it into the hands of Morgan James, and they took a chance on me and said, we'd actually like to publish you. Would you be interested in a traditional publishing deal?
Awesome.
And I'm not comparing myself to, Brendan Boucard, right? Like, that's like, why would I? That's not right. Like I'm not, or even Stephen King, like, it's, nonfiction to fiction. Like, why? That's not what I'm most impressed with, is the fact that after a 2-year hiatus, I managed to make it back up to the number 1 spot in Amazon. That I was a number 1, the number 1 new release, hot new release. Like, that's great for me because I did it the once, and I've well exceeded my sales goals, because I've managed to learn from the past one and do it. So the only person I'm competing with is myself. At 42, I'm actually a better goalie than I was at 22.
Yeah.
Because I've learned the position. I've gotten considerably more economical with my movement. And same with me as a business operator. The business professional a decade ago was chasing all kinds of shiny objects. And I, again, didn't really know myself and take the time to know what my core values are and therefore transfer those into my business. And now I can. So for all these reasons, that's where we're
awesome.
at.
Yeah. And it's true. We're all just a combination of our trials, of our tribulations, of our success, of our environment. And so with that, with the trajectory, the journey you're on right now, when everything is said and done for you here on Earth, what do you hope your positive mark is?
I want to be known as, like, if they were to ask, if somebody was to do an internet search of me 100 years from now, and they were to say, what was Tyler Foley known for? I want to be known as the father of Mackenzie Foley, who went on to change the world through this, whatever it is that my daughter decides to explore in her life. Right now, she's incredibly artistic. She paints, she draws. She's 6 years old. And honestly, if I could spin the camera around now, I have 3 canvases that she's painted up here.
That's awesome.
People think my wife did them.
That's awesome.
But she did. And I don't know if that's going to be ultimately what she does with her life. I don't care. It's up to her. But I want to be able to have provided her with so much support and resources and challenges. Like I don't want her to be just this, spoiled brat kid.
Right.
She needs to struggle on her own. Like right now, she doesn't have a bike with training wheels. And like people are like, I've had some bad feedback on that. They're like, how can you do that? I'm like, because before she had a pedal bike, she was on a push bike, and a push bike allowed her to feel balance. And there is no difference now. And yes, my daughter is going to fall, and she has skinned her knees more than a few times. And I have had the pang inside of me that went, well, maybe we should put those training wheels on. But at the same time, she needs the feedback. She needs to know when she's leaning. She needs to relearn balance, because she already knew it. That's the thing. She didn't not know it. She has the balance within her, and she needs to learn it herself. And that is my goal with her, is to provide her the resources. She got a bike. She's had multiple, and she has me with her always. But she still needs to learn to pedal it on her own. And that is going to be my philosophy for her entire life. And I hope 100 years from now that the impact that I have left is my legacy, and my legacy is her and the family that she then has, and how I've managed to set them up for success, because that's all that I can do. And if I'm known for that, then I will feel that I've made my mark.
That's awesome. And I think, our legacies are crucial, because, the ripple effect, the butterfly effect, everything can stem from that. So very, very noble, Mark, that you're on your journey creating. And Tyler, I appreciate you being on, sharing all these nuggets of what's it like to be a pencil leadership through your eye, or pencil leader through your eyes. And guys, make sure you check out The Power to Speak Naked. You can find it on Amazon. So go and check that out, and just get connected with Tyler. With that being said, Tyler, where can people connect with you on social media, or the easiest way to do that?
Best place to go is SeanTylerFoley.com.
Okay.
SeanTylerFoley.com, kind of like in the little comments there. Sean is spelled the proper Irish way. So SeanTylerFoley.com is kind of all things me, and they can find all the information there. And yes, the book is available on Jeff Bezos' site, but I would strongly encourage everybody, if they could, go over to bookshop.org, because bookshop.org also carries the book. It is a little bit cheaper on that site. It'll connect you with your mom and pop shop, so your local book retailer. And I think if you go on there, this is for US audience. If you're in Canada, I'm sorry, folks, go to Amazon.ca or Barnes & Noble, or whichever one your favorite online is. But for the US audience that is listening to Pencil Leadership right now, Chris, if they could go to Goodreads, bookshop.org, and pick it up there. And I think there's a little banner there. They've raised up to, I think it's $15 million right now, because a portion of all of their sales goes to a fund that then supports local bookstores. And they're over 15 million right now that they've given back to local community.
That's awesome. Yeah. So everyone definitely get connected, check out the book, and just, continue to learn from Tyler and his journey. And again, Tyler, thank you so much for being on Pencil Leadership today.
Oh, Chris, thank you for having me. It was a joy and a pleasure. And I look forward to the next time you and I get to sharpen the pencil together.
Absolutely. And everybody listening to this, thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know if you listen, #replay, share this so other people can learn, and we can have that ripple effect go in a bigger direction, just so people can learn and just dig into this. And so you can make a difference too, just by sharing. So we appreciate you all. And until next time, let's go out.